Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. You have Alyssa Corum here, and I am joined by Justin Nielsen, and we're going to get to the action for the major indexes. But first, Justin, what stocks are we going to be looking at?
We'll go ahead and take a look at a big beat by Target that caused it to gap up today. And also we'll take a look at eBay and end up with ISRG.
Perfect. And a look at the NASDAQ here to kick us off, finishing down about 0.6% for the day. We have the S&P 500 down 0.4%, and the Dow down 0.3%. And we're going to also flip over to an intraday chart. But the news basically was the Fed minutes coming out and officials saying that coronavirus will, quote, weigh heavily on the economy. So not a great bit of news there, headline-wise.
And not really unexpected. I mean, if people didn't kind of put the two together that the coronavirus,
right.
With the shutdowns, that it's going to weigh on the economy. But I think more than that, it was I think investors were looking for some guidance on what the policy is going to be going forward. And it's been very clear that there is a policy review going on. I think people might have been wanting some more kind of insight into how accommodating they're going to be versus stabilizing. And it looks like we're going to have to wait until September to find out the details on that, whether there's going to be some significant more asset purchases and things like that. So when you look at it overall, okay, yes, this was a downside reversal on the NASDAQ composite. We got into new high ground and then we closed near the low. So that's not good. But unless we go to 11,100, holding above there, nothing's really wrong at this point. If we get back into that area, then I'd almost expect us to maybe come right back down to the 21-day line. But there's nothing really to worry about here. If we had undercut yesterday's lows, that might have been a little bit more serious of a downside reversal, because then we would have had an outside day where the high of today was higher than the yesterday's high and the low of today was lower than yesterday's low. But that wasn't the case here. So we held about as well as we could with that news. And if you flip over to the intraday, you can see why, sometimes it's just important to kind of have on your radar when the minutes are coming out, when Fed meetings are, because what happens is a lot of times algos, they're going through those headlines and trying to figure out which direction is going to happen. And you can see some big turns that happen sometimes after those notes come out. And so that's what happened here. You can see, everything was kind of cruising along fine until 11 o'clock. Pacific time, that's 2 p.m. Eastern time. That's when things kind of fell. And it looked like it was trying to hold pretty well after the first 15 minutes, half hour, but then we did kind of come in a little bit at the end.
Yeah, well, we're definitely keeping a close watch on all the different levels that we're watching and the different time frames too. These intraday charts, the daily charts, taking a step back as well, looking at the bigger picture. And it's interesting because, on the one hand, we have been hearing, getting headlines that there's, the light at the end of the tunnel, that, things are getting better for the economy. So we'll have to see where things are headed as the months progress. But all in all, thank you for reassuring us, Justin, and where we are right now. But let's take a look at Target, which, as you mentioned, had a very big day today, up 13%, massive volume on this quarterly earnings report. And interesting to see such a strong day for Target with strong numbers after we got a little bit of a signal of uncertainty from Walmart yesterday.
Right. And so this is kind of the reason why I wanted to show Target, and actually Mike Webster and I were talking about this, is it kind of gives a little bit more of that reassurance. When you have the market kind of come down like it did, but you have something like Target just hold all of its gains, close near the highs, I mean, that does kind of give you a little bit more reassurance. This is not something that was causing widespread panic. A lot of the setups still continue to hold well. And now Target was not really actionable today. I mean,
Mhm.
as good as it would have been to get it at the open and kind of ride it for a even bigger gain, this isn't what we typically do with breakaway gaps. We are usually looking at something that's coming out of some type of basing structure, and that wasn't the case in Target. But what is positive is, and this is what we were talking about on IBD Live today, when you look at their curbside pickup, which again, that's just a game changer. I mean, my wife loves that, because who wants to get my 6-year-old out of the car and then have him like look at all the toys that are in Target? So
Yeah.
curbside pickup, things like that, digital sales. Target was really killing it on a lot of those
Mm.
factors. Walmart was kind of saying, look, we're looking at more normalization, but the fact that Target is still going strong does speak highly for the potential for some of these retailers.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look at that huge volume coming into the stock today. Underscoring the power here. So you said the stock is not actionable today. So for investors now
Mhm.
who have this stock on their radar, what should they be looking for from here? What's the soonest that they could get into this stock with some tight action perhaps from here?
What I would love to see, and again, this is important. You got to keep things on your radar even when they're out of position. Keep them on your radar when they show strength like this. What I'd like to see ideally is some flat action, maybe even a pullback. If it can hold above that gap, that's even better. But a little bit of a pullback here, a little bit of flat action would be great, and that could easily give you another opportunity to get into this winner.
All right, great. And now flipping elsewhere to the more heavily e-commerce side of things with eBay. Speaking of flat bases here, we have exactly that from eBay, and it's continuing higher after a pullback here to the 50-day line, about 5% below a traditional pivot. But what stands out to you about this chart?
Well, number one, that pullback to the 50-day moving average line that you pointed out. I love it when it's a 50-day line that kind of rises to the level. I mean, this was such a strong move that eBay had, and this was a big winner that we had back in 2003. This was one of Bill's big winners. He started buying this in October of 2002, and the fact that it's been able to come back again. There's some things that are just really kind of helping the online retailers right now with shutdown and kind of putting those back to the forefront of a lot of people's minds. We actually put this on Swing Trader right at that bounce off the 50-day moving average line. We took it off because we had a decent gain. We had like 3.7% on the trade. We took it off yesterday, so we missed out on today's gain. But this is still looking great. If you have this as a position trade, even if you had it as a swing trade, you could still be letting this thing go. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll kind of start raising our stop to like maybe 2 days previous, the 2 days low previous. So that's one thing to take a look at. And again, keep an eye on this because that flat action is looking like a good setup with 61.16 as a potential buy point.
All right. And last but not least, Intuitive Surgical, ISRG, also on our radar today. Some really nice tight action here after a big move on earnings back in July.
So here again, it's kind of a theme you see, right? When we were talking about
Mhm.
Target, you were asking what we'd like to see. This is great action. When you see a big move and then kind of going flat, right at a 700 level. So we've talked before about those century marks that can sometimes be very important. So this setup, I mean, granted, it did, turn negative today, but that 700 number could be an important area of resistance. And if you flip over to the weekly on this one, you can just see this is the ideal tight action that you're
Yeah.
looking for. I mean, that's just, you can't get much tighter than that. And so sometimes when you're looking at a daily, especially on a high price stock, it might look more volatile than it really
Hmm.
is. You step back on the weekly, you see how tight this action is.
Exactly. Yeah, we were talking about that with Amazon not
Right.
all too long ago.
Yeah.
So for the buy point here, you mentioned 700. Would you want to wait until it gets over 704, or are you eyeing the $700 right on the mark?
Yeah, we actually kind of snuck into this a little bit early on Swing Trader
Hmm.
because again, the,
That's
the
right.
setup looked really good on the daily today. So we entered into this a little bit early in anticipation of that. Now we won't be
I
giving
guess
it
if
much
you
room.
didn't buy today on
Yeah,
Swing
if you didn't buy
Trader,
it
well,
today,
yeah.
I think that 700 makes a lot of sense. And again, I think it was trading around 697. For $700 stock, 3 points is not
Yeah.
much.
Good stuff. All right.
But
Well,
you know what?
three.
Don't be afraid of those high price stocks. A lot of people are, and they're like, oh,
Mhm.
I can't afford to buy a $700 stock. Don't worry about that. You buy fewer shares, it's not a problem.
Yeah, I love that advice. And everyone can make sure to tune into IBD Live for our even more in-depth discussions on those sorts of topics. And we also have a webinar right around the corner, Justin, with you and Ed. Why don't you tell
Yeah.
us about it?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking because we have kind of made a lot of changes to some of our portfolio management rules. How many positions should you own? And so if you see what we kind of talk about on IBD Live and what we do on Leaderboard, we've kind of veered a little bit away from what Bill originally said in his book, How to Make Money in Stocks. So we're going to talk a little bit about that difference.
Oh, I want to hear more, and how I'll be able to is along with the rest of our audience is by going to investors.com/webinar, and it's happening at 2 p.m. Pacific, so in just about 45 minutes from now. So Justin, we'll see you guys there along
Yep.
with Ed, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow, everyone. Thanks for watching.